7 years ago, a child vanished without a scream, without a trace, without justice. The case was closed, the mother was blamed, and the truth was buried. Until one night, the phone rang. The voice on the other end did not ask for help. It did not cry. It knew a sentence no stranger should ever know. What followed was not a rescue story. It was an accusation. Because the more this mother searched for her son, the more evidence appeared proving she might be the real monster. Police reports rewritten. Memories she does not remember living. A woman everyone trusts, who should never have been near a child. And a boy who was not asking to be saved. He was checking if his mother was still dangerous. Stay until the end, because the final truth will make you question who the victim really was, and whether finding your child is always the right thing to do. The phone rang at 3 in the morning, and for a long moment I thought it was the smoke alarm. The sound had that same thin, panicked insistence, like something small screaming inside a box. I lay there listening to it, my heart already racing, my body deciding before my mind that this was danger. When I finally picked up, I did not say hello. At first there was only breathing, fast, uneven, too close to the receiver. I imagined a child hiding under a bed, a blanket pulled over their head, whispering into a toy phone. I almost hung up. Then a voice spoke, quiet but steady, as if rehearsed. "If I get lost," the voice said, "you'll find me by the stars." My hand went numb. The phone slipped, hit my cheek, and I caught it again with my shoulder. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the cold kitchen floor, the tiles pressing lines into my skin. That sentence had not been spoken out loud in 7 years. It had never been written down. It was a promise I made once, crouched beside a small bed, tracing constellations on a glow-in-the-dark ceiling. "Who is this?" I whispered. The breathing came back, faster now. Then a click. The line went dead. I stayed there until the sky outside the window began to lighten, the black turning to that sickly blue that comes before dawn. My coffee went cold, untouched on the counter. I tried to tell myself it had been a prank, a wrong number, a sick joke. But my body remembered before my brain could lie to it. I was shaking the way I had shaken on the day my son disappeared, the way I had shaken when the police told me they were suspending active searches, the way I had shaken when the last detective on the case shook my hand and said he was sorry. 7 years earlier, on a summer afternoon that smelled like cut grass and charcoal, my son had gone to retrieve a red rubber ball from the edge of our yard.
We lived in a quiet suburb outside Milwaukee, the kind of place with white fences and neighborhood watch signs that made people feel safe without doing much. I was turning burgers on the grill. Music drifted from somewhere down the street. He waved at me and ran toward the fence. He never came back. There were no screams, no struggle. One moment he was there, and the next there was only the ball, resting against the wooden slats like it had been placed there carefully. Cameras on nearby houses showed nothing useful. A neighbor remembered a woman pushing a stroller earlier that day, but no one could describe her face. The stroller was empty. For months, I slept with the lights on. For years, I jumped every time the phone rang. I memorized the shape of my grief, learned how to carry it without spilling too much in public. The case went cold. The world moved on. I learned how to breathe again, how to smile when people told me I was strong. And then the phone rang. By morning, I had convinced myself to go to the police. I showered and dressed like a person who belonged in daylight.
At the station, a young officer took my statement and led me to the sheriff's office. He was new, recently transferred, his name stitched in neat letters on his uniform. He listened without interrupting, his expression carefully neutral, but I saw something flicker when I repeated the phrase about the stars. "That's very specific," he said.
"We'll look into the call records. Do you remember the number?" I shook my head. My phone log was empty, as if the call had never existed. He told me gently that there were people who preyed on unresolved cases, and that it could be a hoax. He said they would keep an eye out. He did not say he believed me. When I walked out into the parking lot, the sun was already high, too bright, too cheerful. I fumbled for my keys, my hands still unsteady. That was when I felt it. The sensation of being watched, like a pressure between my shoulder blades. She stood near a gray sedan at the far end of the lot. She wore a plain coat despite the heat, her hair pulled back tight. Our eyes met, and something in her face tightened. Not fear, not surprise, but recognition. She smiled at me. It was a small smile, almost polite. Then she turned and walked away between the cars, disappearing as if she had stepped through a crack in the air. I knew her. I did not know how, but I knew her. She was older now, heavier maybe, but the memory snapped into place with painful clarity. The woman with the stroller on the corner of our street. The one the neighbors mentioned and then forgot. That night I did not sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone in front of me, willing it to ring, terrified that it would. Every sound outside made me flinch. At a little after midnight, I gave up and lay down on the couch, my eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The phone rang again just before dawn. This time the voice did not whisper. It was still young, but lower, a steadier, older. "I saw the stars through the window," it said. "When we were driving, they were shaking." My mouth tasted like metal. "Where are you?" I asked. A pause. I heard something in the background, a hum, maybe an engine, maybe just my imagination. "There's a scar on my knee," the voice said. "From the bike, on the holiday with fireworks." I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from making a sound. I remembered the blood, the tears, the way I had carried him inside and cleaned the scrape while fireworks popped in the distance. "Please," I said, "tell me where you are." The voice named a place I knew too well. A derelict motel off an old highway, shuttered for years. A landmark for teenagers looking to scare themselves. Then the line went dead. I did not wait for the police. I told myself I would call them from the road, that I would explain later. I grabbed my keys and drove with the windows down, the cold air burning my face, keeping me awake. The motel loomed out of the trees like a broken tooth. Its sign flickered weakly, letters missing, buzzing with insects. I parked and sat there for a moment, my heart hammering so hard it hurt. I thought of the woman in the parking lot. I thought of the stars. Inside, the air was damp and stale. The carpet squelched under my feet. I followed the sound of breathing to a room at the end of the corridor. The door was ajar. He sat on the bed, taller than I expected, his hair darker, his face thinner. He looked at me with eyes that searched mine, hopeful and wary at the same time. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between us. "Mom," he said, and the word was both right and wrong, like a note slightly out of tune. I stepped forward, my hands shaking. "What's your name?" I asked, hating myself for the question. He answered with my son's name. I closed my eyes, dizzy with relief and fear tangled together. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. The woman stood in the doorway, her gray coat hanging open now, revealing careful, practical clothes underneath. She raised her hands in a gesture that might have been surrender or might have been a performance. "You should not be here," she said calmly. "You're upsetting him." The world tilted. I understood, suddenly, that nothing about this was going to be simple, that the stars had led me not home, but into something darker. I turned slowly, every muscle locked tight, afraid that if I moved too fast, the moment would shatter, and he would vanish like a dream. The woman's eyes flicked past me to the boy on the bed, checking him the way a nurse checks a patient. Possessive. Careful. "He's not upset," I said, though my voice betrayed me. "He called me. He asked me to come." She smiled again, that same small, controlled smile. "He gets confused sometimes." The boy's gaze darted between us. Up close, I could see details that hurt more than distance ever could. The faint line of a scar on his knee, the shape of his hands, long-fingered like his father's. But there were things missing, too. He did not lean toward me. He did not reach out. He sat very still, like someone waiting for instructions. "Do you remember me?" I asked him softly. He hesitated. "I remember pieces," he said. "A house, a grill, music." He looked at the woman, as if checking whether it was allowed to say more. She nodded once. "That's enough," she said. "We talked about this." My chest burned. "Who are you?" I demanded. "My name is Evelyn," she said. "I've been taking care of him for a long time." "You kidnapped my son." She did not flinch. "I saved him." The sound that came out of me was half laugh, half sob. "From what?" "From you." She did not say it out loud, but the words hung there, heavy and unmistakable. Before I could answer, headlights washed through the broken window. Tires crunched on gravel. The boy stiffened. Evelyn's shoulders relaxed. "Good," she said quietly. "They're here." The sheriff stepped into the doorway a moment later, his presence filling the narrow space. 2 deputies followed him. His face was grave, but not surprised. "Ma'am," he said to me gently, "please put your hands where we can see them." I looked at him, then at the boy, and then back at Evelyn. "What is this?" I whispered. "What are you doing?" The sheriff sighed. "We can talk about that, but not here." Metal closed around my wrists. The sound was too familiar, the click final and loud in the small room. I did not resist. I could not. My eyes never left the boy's face. "I came because you called me," I said to him desperately. "You remember the stars? That was our thing." He frowned, confusion creasing his forehead. "The stars," he repeated slowly. "You talk about them a lot." The deputies guided me out. Evelyn put a hand on the boy's shoulder. He leaned into her touch without thinking. In the patrol car, the sheriff sat beside me, his voice low, almost kind. He told me this was for my own safety. He told me they had protocols. He told me the boy was not in danger. "He's not your son anymore," he said finally. Something inside me broke then, clean and sharp. He will always be my son. At the station, they took my phone, my keys, my shoelaces. They put me in a small room with pale walls and a table bolted to the floor. Hours passed, or minutes. Time lost its shape. Eventually, they brought in a woman with silver hair and a soft voice, a psychiatrist. She spoke to me like one speaks to a frightened animal. "Do you remember the day your son disappeared?" she asked. "Yes." "Do you remember what you were feeling at the time?" I laughed bitterly. Everyone knows what a mother feels when her child goes missing. She nodded. Do you remember being angry with him that day? The question landed wrong. No. She slid a file across the table. Inside were papers filled with writing I recognized immediately. My writing, pages of it, notes, letters, dates written carefully in the margins, all spelled out. Reports from therapists, evaluations, transcripts of interviews. You were experiencing a severe psychotic break, she said gently. Triggered by stress, sleep deprivation, a history of untreated depression. I shook my head, but the room felt unsteady. That's not possible. You do not remember hitting him? She continued. You do not remember the neighbors calling emergency services. You do not remember the hospital. No, I said, louder now. That's not true. She turned a page. You do not remember signing the papers that relinquished custody to his biological father. My ears rang. My husband, or rather, the man who had been my husband. We had divorced not long after. I remembered the shouting, the court dates, but everything after the disappearance blurred together into grief and fog. You were deemed a danger, she said. Temporarily, but long enough. And the kidnapping? I said.
The woman with the stroller. She was a social worker, the psychiatrist replied, assigned to the case. The stroller was a cover so as not to alarm the neighborhood. I pressed my palms to my eyes. Images flickered behind them, disjointed and bright. My son crying, a room too white, voices telling me to calm down, hands on my arms. Why does not he remember me? I whispered. He does, she said. But memory is complicated, especially when there's trauma. He was told you were sick, that you loved him, but it was not safe. The door opened briefly. The sheriff leaned in. She's asking about the calls, he said. The psychiatrist nodded. She turned back to me. The phone calls were a test, she said. Evelyn wanted to know if contact would destabilize you, if you were still dangerous. Dangerous, I echoed. They were not supposed to escalate, she added, a flicker of something like doubt crossing her face. That part concerns me. They left me alone then. The walls seemed to close in. I tried to hold on to anger, but fear seeped in around it, cold and convincing. What if they were right? What if the worst thing I could do for my son was be near him? Hours later, they returned my phone. One call, the sheriff said, to arrange transport. As he turned away, the phone vibrated in my hand. An incoming call. Unknown number. He frowned. That's not, I answered. Do not listen to them, the voice said. No whisper now. Clear, adult, controlled. They're lying to you. My breath caught. Who is this? You know who it is, he said. I just needed to be sure. Sure of what? That you'd still come. The line went dead. The sheriff stared at me, his face pale. That call did not go through our system, he said slowly. Something cold and electric spread through my chest. For the first time since the motel, since the cuffs closed around my wrists, fear sharpened into something else. Hope. The room felt different after that call, as if the air itself had shifted. The sheriff stood very still, staring at my phone like it might bite him. I stared too, half expecting it to ring again immediately, to prove I was not imagining things. That's impossible, he said finally. You're in a secured room. He called me, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, steadier than I felt. So either he's not where you think he is, or you're not telling me everything. He did not answer. He took the phone from my hand and left the room without another word. I was alone again, but this time the silence was not empty. It was full of questions that no longer pointed only at me. I replayed the voice in my head. It was older now, confident, nothing like the hesitant boy in the motel room. That voice had not asked for help. It had tested me, and I had passed. Hours later, the psychiatrist returned. Her calm expression slightly cracked around the edges. "We're going to move you to a medical facility for observation," she said. "Just for a short time." "I want to see my son," I replied. She hesitated. "That's not possible right now." "Then I want to see his father." Another pause. "He passed away 3 years ago." The words landed softly, like snow, and then crushed me under their weight. "How?" "Heart attack," she said. "He had full custody at the time." "And Evelyn?" I said. "She just took over." "She was appointed guardian," the psychiatrist replied, "with the court's approval." I laughed quietly. Of course she was. They moved me that night. A long drive, windows barred, the world sliding past in dark blurs. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the motel room, the way the boy leaned toward Evelyn without thinking. At the facility, days blurred together. Evaluations, questions, tests designed to make me doubt my own memories. I answered calmly, carefully. I had learned something important in the holding room at the station. They expected me to be unstable, so I was not. I complied. I took the medication they gave me. I attended the sessions. I spoke about my grief in the approved language, the way they liked. And I listened. People talk when they think you're broken. I learned that Evelyn visited regularly, that she was cooperative, respected, considered a hero in certain circles. I learned that my son, legally, no longer existed under his old name. His records had been sealed after his father's death. Protection, they said. I also learned that someone had accessed the facility's phone routing system the night I received the call. Not from outside, from within. A week later, during a supervised walk in the courtyard, a young orderly slipped on wet concrete and dropped his clipboard at my feet. As I bent to help him pick it up, I saw a name printed at the top of one of the forms. My son's new name. That night, my room phone rang. "I told you not to trust them," the voice said. "Where are you?" I asked quietly. "Close," he replied. "Closer than she thinks." "She says she saved you," I said. "She says I was dangerous." A pause. "She says a lot of things." "Do you remember what happened?" I pressed. "Before you disappeared?" "I remember you crying," he said, "and shouting. I remember being scared." The guilt flared hot and sharp, familiar and easy. "I was sick," I whispered. "I know," he said. "That's what they told me. For a long time, that was all I knew." "And now?" "Now I remember other things," he said. "Like how she never let me look at the stars." My throat tightened. "Why are you calling me now?" "Because she's planning to move," he said. "Out of state. New name, new start." "She does that." The panic surged. "When?" "Soon," he said. "And this time, she's not asking permission." The line went dead. The next day, Evelyn came to see me. She sat across from me in the visitation room, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Up close, I could see the exhaustion under her careful composure. "He's been contacting you," she said without preamble. "Yes?" Her jaw tightened. "I was afraid of that." "You lied to him," I said. "You lied to everyone." "I protected him," she snapped, the calm finally slipping. "You do not remember what you were like. The rage, the paranoia. You thought people were watching him through the windows." I swallowed. I did remember flashes. Fear magnified until it drowned everything else. "I got help," I said. "You never gave me a chance." "You signed the papers," she replied. "You agreed." "I was sedated." She looked away. "It was legal." "That does not make it right." Silence stretched between us. Then she leaned forward. "He's not a child anymore," she said quietly. "He's angry. He's asking questions. And every time he looks at you, he destabilizes. I won't not let you destroy him again." "You're the one destroying him," I said. "You turned his life into an experiment." Her eyes hardened. "I turned him into a survivor." When she left, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. She was afraid. 2 nights later, the fire alarm went off.
Chaos flooded the halls. Doors opened. Staff shouted instructions. In the confusion, a hand caught mine. "Do not look back," the voice said. He stood there, taller than me now, his face half familiar, half unknown. My son. Or the person he had become. "How?" I started. "Later," he said. "She's on her way." We ran. Out a service exit, across a dark lawn, into a waiting car. As we pulled onto the road, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You have no idea what you're doing." He looked at the screen and then at me. "She always says that." "Where are we going?" I asked. He smiled, a real smile this time, uncertain but bright. "Somewhere with stars." Behind us, sirens wailed, growing louder. Ahead, the road stretched into darkness, and for the first time in 7 years, I did not know whether I was rescuing my child or stealing him back.